I've often said, you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. See, most people spend more time planning their weekend than they spend planning their financial future. Isn't that astonishing? You know, life has this curious way of paying us exactly what we demand. Not what we wish for, but what we demand with our thinking, our habits, and our discipline. And wealth? Wealth doesn't respond to emotion, it responds to principle. And once you understand that, your future is no longer a question, it becomes a project. And the best time to start building? Today. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. How to escape the lottery ticket mentality, how to break free from the poverty of impatience, and how to change your financial future with tools that have worked for centuries: vision, discipline, and the courage to think long term. Most people want financial freedom. It's one of the biggest wishes I've heard in countless conversations. They picture themselves with a bigger bank account, a nicer car, a bigger house. They can imagine it, they can desire it, but desire alone doesn't carry a person across the bridge from wishing to having. The bridge between those two places is called discipline, and it is built one plank, one daily choice at a time. I remember being a young man with nothing but a modest income and a burning desire for more. At first, I thought the secret was making more money, finding that big opportunity that would suddenly solve all of my problems. But then came the lesson that shaped my life. It doesn't matter how much you make if you don't have the discipline to steward it. Making more money doesn't fix a mindset that spends more than it earns. A person can win $1 million, but if their habits and thinking don't match that level, the money will disappear as quickly as it came. You've seen this happen. It's not because life is unfair. It's because the person never built themselves into the one who can sustain that kind of wealth. Discipline is a quiet force. It doesn't shout, it doesn't boast, it simply shows up every morning and says, today we save $1. Today we invest $10. Today we review where our money went yesterday, and we adjust. It doesn't sound exciting, but this is the language of those who rise from struggle to strength. I started with $1. I started by making a quiet commitment to save 10% of every dollar that came my way, no matter how little it felt. At first, that 10% felt insignificant. But after a year, after 3 years, after 10 years, I looked back and marveled at how that tiny daily discipline had reshaped my financial life. Here's the thing about discipline. It reshapes you. The discipline of putting 10% aside turns into the discipline of living within your means. The discipline of living within your means turns into the discipline of looking for ways to multiply that 10%. Suddenly, you aren't just working harder for more money. You're working smarter to make money work harder for you. What started as a habit becomes a philosophy, and that philosophy becomes a character. I've watched people I grew up with make good money and lose it all. Not because of bad luck, but because their character was still shaped for scarcity. They thought a big payday would save them, but when the payday came, it passed right through their hands like water. They had desire, but no discipline. And in this world, desire is common, discipline is rare. The bridge from wishing to doing, from dreaming to having, is built with daily discipline. Build it strong, build it every day. Build yourself, and the money will follow. What you become is worth more than what you have. Stay faithful to the disciplines, and soon the results will speak for themselves. Most people wait for a moment that never arrives. They tell themselves, I'll start when I have more money, I'll save when I have a bigger paycheck, I'll invest when the timing feels right. But here's a truth you have to accept. If you want to rise above struggle, the best time to start is always right now. And the best amount is whatever you can reliably set aside, no matter how small it may seem. What separates those who build lasting financial strength from those who only dream about it is this one understanding: consistency beats intensity every time. I learned this early in my life when I had almost nothing. The first dollar I set aside felt insignificant. The first $50 I invested felt like a drop in the ocean. But those drops add up, and over the years they form a river. I started by putting $10 a week into an envelope, a quiet agreement I made with myself. It felt like nothing. It felt almost embarrassing compared to the large sums I imagined wealthy people invested. But I kept at it, and slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, a shift happened not only in my bank account, but in my thinking. That $10 became $50, then $100, and eventually a fixed percentage of every dollar I earned. What started as a humble practice became a force that shaped the direction of my life. The lesson is simple, but it is profound. It is better to save and invest a little consistently than to save a lot only when you feel like it. The wealthy understand this. They understand that discipline creates its own momentum, and that momentum, if protected and nurtured, can carry a person further than any single heroic effort. Time, too, is a force that the wealthy respect. You can save $1 every day for 10 years and have a foundation for a new chapter of your life. You can invest a small sum every month, and over the span of a decade or two, witness how compounding transforms those humble beginnings into a significant nest egg. The secret lies not in starting big, but in starting now and never stopping. I've watched countless people wait for the right opportunity. I've watched others walk right past the chance to build a better life because they felt their efforts weren't enough. But every dollar you save or invest is a seed. The seed doesn't ask if it's too small to matter. The seed simply goes into the soil and, if tended patiently, becomes a tree. The wealthy understand this. They don't despise the seed. They don't reject the dollar. They respect it, nurture it, and watch it grow. So when you wonder where to begin, remember this. It is better to walk a mile every day than to run 10 miles only when you're inspired. Begin where you are, with what you have, and stay faithful. Time will reward your consistency far more than any flash of intensity ever could. If you want to understand how to create wealth, you must first understand those who have done it. Too many people try to figure it out on their own, relying only on their limited experience or repeating the same habits that have kept them stuck for years. But those who rise above mediocrity understand a simple truth. Success leaves clues, and those clues can be found in the stories of people who started with nothing and built themselves into something remarkable. The easiest, most inexpensive way to access those clues is to read one biography every month of someone who created their own path to prosperity. I remember when I first came across this idea. At the time, I felt like I was wandering in the dark, trying to understand why some people thrived while others struggled. Then one evening, a mentor gave me a book about a businessman who had started from humble beginnings and built a life that inspired generations. As I read about his struggles, his setbacks, and the moments when he refused to give up, something changed inside of me. Suddenly, I was no longer trying to piece together a roadmap from thin air. I was walking beside someone who had already traveled the path I was just starting to imagine. Each month after that, I chose a new book, a new story about someone who refused to accept defeat and learned to harness discipline, focus, and resilience. Those stories weren't just entertainment. They weren't just a way to kill time. They became my teachers. They gave me ideas, insights, and strategies I could apply to my own life. I started noticing patterns. I began to understand that wealthy people weren't wealthy because of sheer luck or a single moment of genius. They were wealthy because they mastered certain habits, embraced certain disciplines, and refused to be discouraged when things didn't go their way. Reading these stories doesn't just give you information, it reshapes the way you think. Suddenly, when faced with a challenge, you remember how one person responded to a crisis, and you ask yourself, quote, "What would I do if I had that same strength?" Suddenly, when faced with an opportunity, you recall how another person acted with courage and conviction, and you find the strength to do the same. Slowly, quietly, these examples work their way into your character. You no longer walk with doubt, but with a sense of belonging in a world where victory is possible. The wealthy have always learned from those who came before them. They have always stood on the shoulders of giants. You don't have to have lunch with a billionaire or walk into a room of successful entrepreneurs to gain access to their wisdom. You can open a book. You can spend an hour a night immersed in their stories. And if you do this long enough, faithfully enough, you'll notice a shift, not just in your knowledge, but in your belief. Belief that you too can walk a path worth following. The map is in the pages. All you have to do is pick it up and walk. Most people walk through life with a clock that only ticks until tonight. They make decisions based on how things feel right now, a short burst of satisfaction, a quick moment of comfort, a dollar saved here, a dollar wasted there. They measure time in decades, not days. They ask themselves a very different set of questions every morning. Not, quote, what can I have today? But what can I build that lasts 10 years from now? Not what feels good tonight, but what will I be proud of when I'm old? I learned this lesson the hard way. In the early years, I would work long days, put a little money away, and spend the rest as soon as it came in. The problem was that the more I earned, the more ways I found to justify spending it. New car, new gadget, new nights out. All of it felt like reward, and every dollar felt like mine to spend. But every dollar spent for momentary pleasure was a dollar that refused to work for my future. It refused to multiply, refused to carry its load for the long term. Then came a conversation with a man older and wiser than myself. He said, if you spend like a man with only today, you'll always be a man with only today. But if you spend like a man with 10 years ahead, 10 years will reward you like a faithful servant. Those words sank deep. They weren't about deprivation, they were about vision. Suddenly I began to ask myself, every time I pulled out my wallet, am I feeding a moment or planting a seed? And that one shift changed everything. I started looking at every dollar like a tiny worker. Will this dollar build a bridge for tomorrow, or will it vanish tonight? Will it multiply in an investment, or will it be buried in a forgettable expense? Will it help fund a chance, an opportunity, a piece of knowledge, or will it slip away to quiet forgetfulness? What a difference this made. What a shift in mindset. The wealthy understand this better than anyone. They understand that every dollar can be treated like a seed buried intentionally and tended faithfully until it produces a harvest. They don't fear saying no to the things that don't matter because they have a vision that does matter. They understand that 10 years goes by faster than you think, and the man or woman who chooses wisely in those 10 years can stand tall for the rest of their life. So when you stand at a crossroads, when you have the choice between chasing a quick thrill or planting a long-term seed, remember this: the future doesn't forget where you put your resources. The wealthy aren't wealthy because they were lucky. They are wealthy because long ago, when no one was watching, they acted like 10 years ahead was worth more than 10 minutes tonight. That is the quiet secret that separates those who stay broke from those who build a legacy. Choose wisely, choose long. The future is listening. Most people make a mistake when their income goes up. They assume that more money gives them permission to spend more money. Suddenly a raise becomes a bigger car, a bigger house, a better vacation. What they don't realize is that every dollar spent prematurely is a dollar that can never be invested, never be multiplied, and never come back to work for you. The wealthy understand this truth. They understand that it's not what you earn, but what you keep that determines the future. The wealthy make a quiet promise to themselves every time their income grows to live like they're still earning the old number until their investments can pay for the new one. I learned this lesson early in my own life when I watched a man making 10 times what I was making still live like he earned half. At first I thought it was strange. Why drive a simple car when you can drive a luxury one? Why stay in a modest house when you can afford a castle? But he pulled me aside one evening and said, the best thing you can do for your future is to live like you're still working to build it. Spend like a rich man when you can afford it, when your investments can pay for it. Until then, stay quiet, stay humble, and stay invested. That one piece of advice shaped the way I looked at every dollar. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy life. It doesn't mean you have to deprive yourself. What it means is making a choice. Will you spend your money making an impression, or will you spend your money making more money? Will you trade long-term freedom for short-term applause? Will you make the bank rich with interest payments, or will you make yourself rich with invested income? The wealthy have learned to delay gratification because they understand the math of patience. A dollar saved can be a dollar invested. An investment can be an engine. An engine can spin for years, creating income long after the moment you first acted. I started doing this in my own life. The first time I earned a significant raise, I didn't upgrade my car. I didn't move to a bigger place. Instead, I kept living like I was making the old salary. The difference? I saved it, I invested it, and I watched it grow. Slowly, steadily, those investments started to do the work for me. Suddenly, one day, I didn't have to wonder if I could afford the nicer things. I had built a stream of income that offered those things as a gift. Not because I earned more, but because I learned to live on less. That's the secret most people miss. They think richness is a number, a salary, a title. It's not. Richness is a discipline. It's choosing to build first, to sow first, to delay the feast until the harvest arrives. The wealthy aren't wealthy because they earned more. They're wealthy because long ago, when no one was watching, they lived like it until the world called it so. Let that be your path too. Most people make the mistake of rewarding themselves too soon. The moment their income grows, so does their desire for a better car, a bigger house, a fancier vacation. It's a quiet trap, and it catches people every day. The wealthy understand something different. They understand that the real reward doesn't come from how much you can spend today, but from how much you can build for tomorrow. They wait. Not because they don't deserve the things money can buy, but because they recognize that every dollar used for an upgrade is a dollar no longer working for their future. I learned this lesson years ago when I was starting out. I had worked hard to land a promotion that nearly doubled my income. I felt like I had arrived, that I had earned the right to upgrade. A new car, a nicer apartment, a watch I had admired for years, it was tempting. But a voice I had come to respect said, "Wait until your investments can pay for it." At first, it felt like a restriction, like saying no to myself. But then I tried it. I put that raise into an investment account. The new car and the bigger place could wait. The future I was building felt more rewarding than any temporary thrill. The wealthy understand this quiet rule. They live in a space where discipline meets vision. They don't upgrade their lifestyle based on earned income. They upgrade based on passive income. They don't use a paycheck for a luxury. They use the returns from an investment. The mindset is simple, yet profound. If I can't pay for it with the income from my assets, then I don't really afford it. That approach separates those who build a fortress from those who decorate a tent. Think about the difference this makes over time. Let's say you save and invest the $500 a month you might have used for a car upgrade. In 10 years, that could be a six-figure investment that spins off income every year. Compare that with a car that 10 years later is worth almost nothing. One path buys freedom. The other buys moments. One path builds legacy. The other builds a garage full of liabilities. This doesn't mean you don't ever enjoy the fruits of your labor. It means you time it wisely. The wealthy understand that money is like a seed. You can eat the seed or you can plant it. The seed you plant grows a tree, and that tree will bear fruit long after the moment you gave up. The discipline to wait is what separates those who stay wealthy from those who only visit the lifestyle for a moment. I can tell you from experience, it's worth it. The first time you pay for a vacation with the returns from an investment account, or you drive a car paid for by the income your assets created, you understand a profound truth. True freedom doesn't come from making more money. It comes from making money work for you. Let that be your measure of when to upgrade, when your assets say it's time. One of the biggest shifts in my life came when I stopped thinking of opportunity as an abstract thing and started seeing it for what it really is, a person. The wealthy understand this deeply. They recognize that every chance to grow, every deal that reshapes a life, every partnership that can multiply their efforts doesn't arrive with a sign attached. It arrives with a handshake, a conversation, an introduction. It arrives on two legs. I remember when I was starting out, I thought hard work and a solid idea would be enough. Those matter. But if you're doing it all alone, you're limiting the biggest multiplier available to you other people. The wealthy have a saying that has stood the test of time. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The biggest breakthroughs of my life came from moments when I stepped out of isolation, shook hands with strangers, and discovered that one conversation can shift the trajectory of a decade. But this doesn't happen by accident. You have to be intentional about where you spend your time and who you surround yourself with. The wealthy aren't hiding away hoping the right person finds them. They seek out spaces where ideas, ambition, and vision are exchanged. They go to seminars where the air is charged with possibility. They join mastermind groups where people test ideas, challenge limits, and broaden each other's thinking. They understand that a room can be a seedbed for a lifetime of connections. I learned this lesson when I was younger, attending a small financial seminar. At first, I felt like an outsider, a kid, trying to make sense of a room full of people who spoke a language I was still learning. But I introduced myself, I listened, I asked questions, and in that room, I met a businessman who became a mentor and later a partner. What I learned in an afternoon-shaped years of growth that came after, all because I was in the room, that's the point. The wealthy don't wait for opportunity to land on their desk. They walk out and find it. They position themselves where ideas and connections happen naturally. They understand that one conversation can unlock a door that 10 years of working alone might never open. It's not about collecting business cards or adding people online. It's about showing up with genuine curiosity, an open heart, and a desire to create value. The wealthy ask questions. They listen more than they speak. They find ways to contribute before expecting to gain. They approach every room with the mindset, what can I learn here? What can I give here? And that's why those rooms remember them. The greatest investments aren't just financial, they're human. The ideas, trust, and partnerships you nurture can multiply every dollar you've ever saved. Never forget the next chapter of your story may walk in on two legs. Stay open, stay present, stay connected. You never know which conversation will change your life. I've learned that every person who achieves financial freedom has a quiet conversation with failure, not just once, but many times. The wealthy understand a truth most miss. A mistake isn't a dead end, it's a lesson wrapped in pain. And if you're willing to unpack it, that lesson can save you 10 times the cost down the line. Too many people run from their failures or bury them deep where no one can see. The wealthy do the opposite. They drag their setbacks into the light, study them like a map, and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Early in my life, I made an investment I didn't fully understand. It was a quick decision, too quick, based more on emotion than understanding. The results weren't good. I felt ashamed for a while. But one night, after beating myself up enough, I pulled out a notebook, listed every reason the investment failed, and asked, if I had to do this over, what would I do differently? The answers came quickly, sharply. Suddenly, that loss felt like it had purchased a lesson worth 10 times its cost. The wealthy have this habit. They review every misstep like a coach studies the tape after a tough game. They don't personalize it as, I am a failure. They understand that I tried and failed is how the best lessons are learned. What separates those who rise from those who fall is the discipline to learn from defeat. An error ignored will be repeated. An error examined becomes an investment in wisdom. If you lose money on a business, ask yourself, why didn't this work? Did you skip due diligence? Did you trust too quickly? Did you fail to watch the numbers? The questions sting, but the sting is what makes the lesson stick. The wealthy don't fear the sting, they respect it. They write down the lesson, they adjust their approach. And the next time an opportunity arrives, that lesson is ready to protect them from repeating the same error. This applies far beyond money. It applies to relationships, habits, and every area where decisions matter. I remember trying to save a failing business long after it was dead, pouring money and pride into a lost cause. It hurt, and when it finally sank, I promised myself one thing. Next time, I would recognize when to walk away. That single lesson saved me more in later years than I lost in that one moment. What felt like a defeat became one of the best returns I've ever earned. The wealthy aren't afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of making the same mistake twice. So when setbacks occur, slow down long enough to capture the lesson. Put it on paper. Let it teach you. The price of a mistake can be steep, but its lesson can be worth a lifetime. Remember, it's not the error that defines you, it's the wisdom you carry forward that determines your future. One of the biggest shifts in my life came when I stopped thinking about how much I could make per hour and started thinking about how much I could own. In the early days, I worked hard for a paycheck, and like most people, I felt proud when it arrived. But the more I looked around, the more I noticed something about those who truly built long-term wealth. Their pride came from equity, not wages. They owned things, a piece of a business, a piece of land, a piece of an idea that kept growing long after the work was done. A paycheck is a reward for hours worked. An equity stake is a seed for a lifetime of returns. The wealthy understand that when you trade time for money, you have a ceiling, a limit. Even if your hourly rate is very high, the hours themselves run out. But when you own, the ceiling disappears. An investment can work for you while you sleep, while you spend time with family, while you focus on growing other ideas. This is why those who build true financial freedom don't ask, how much can I get for this hour? They ask, what can I build or own that can grow for years? I remember a lesson learned early in my life. I was offered a chance to consult for a growing business. The owner gave me a choice, a higher hourly rate or a smaller stake in the company. At the time, I was focused on immediate income, on making sure the bills were paid and the short-term needs were met. I chose the higher hourly rate. It felt right. But 10 years later, that same business was worth 10 times more, and those who chose equity watched their net worth multiply. What felt like security in the moment was actually a limitation. The lesson stayed with me. If you're serious about building long-term financial strength, you have to shift from working for a wage to planting seeds of equity. This doesn't mean you walk away from a job or ignore income. It means you intentionally carve out a portion of your time, energy, and money to build or own things that can grow. It means buying shares of a solid company every month, starting that side business you've thought about for too long, or putting some savings into a piece of land that will still be worth more a decade from now. The wealthy ask themselves every morning, what am I doing today that builds equity? It can be a small thing, adding a few dollars to an investment account, refining a business process that will save hours next month, nurturing a relationship that could open doors later. These aren't urgent moments. They're quiet decisions. But quiet decisions, made consistently, build empires. Trust this truth. It's not the biggest moves that create freedom, it's the smartest. Begin focusing more of your effort, your resources, and your thinking on building and owning things that grow. That shift doesn't just change your bank account, it changes the arc of your life. Money is often misunderstood. Many chase it as if it were the ultimate goal, a symbol of status or power, something to be flaunted or hoarded. But true wealth comes when you see money for what it really is, a tool, a servant to your purpose. It's not the master, it's the means by which you build security, freedom, and the ability to make a meaningful impact on the world around you. Early in my career, I was guilty of chasing money for money's sake. I thought the bigger the bank account, the happier and more successful I would be. I bought into the illusion that money itself was the prize. But I soon realized that money, like any tool, only has value when it's put to good use. It can build a fortress of safety, or it can build a prison of greed. It can fund your dreams, or it can fund distractions. The choice is yours. Imagine money as the axe in the hands of a woodsman. The axe is powerful, but it's the woodsman's skill, vision, and purpose that determine how far he gets. Without a clear goal, the axe is just a heavy tool. But with intention, it can clear a path through the thickest forest. The same is true for your money. It's your purpose that guides it and shapes its impact. When you decide that money serves your purpose, your mindset changes. You stop spending to impress others or to satisfy fleeting desires. Instead, you start asking questions like, does this purchase build my security? Does it bring me closer to financial freedom? Does it allow me to contribute to causes I care about? These questions create boundaries around your spending and investing. They keep your money aligned with your values and your vision. Security is the first purpose money can serve. It buys peace of mind, the confidence that you can handle emergencies, setbacks, or changes without falling apart. Without security, every day feels like walking on a tightrope. So you put aside savings, build an emergency fund, and protect your income streams. This is not about fear. It's about stewardship. Next, money can serve freedom. Freedom to choose how you spend your time, where you live, and who you spend it with. Freedom from debt, freedom from the grind of living paycheck to paycheck. This kind of freedom requires disciplined living below your means, investing wisely, and focusing on building income streams that don't require your constant presence. Finally, money can serve impact. Once you have security and freedom, you can begin to give time, resources, wisdom. Impact means helping others, supporting your community, creating something that lasts beyond your own life. This is the highest calling money can serve, turning wealth into legacy. In my own journey, I found that when I shifted from wanting money to serve me to me serving a higher purpose with my money, everything changed. Decisions became easier. Sacrifices became meaningful. And the peace that comes from knowing your wealth is aligned with your deepest values is priceless. So remember, money is a servant, not a master. Let it serve your purpose and watch how your financial life and your entire life transforms. That is the true secret of lasting wealth. Money and emotions have a complicated relationship. Too often, people let their feelings dictate their financial decisions, and it ends in regret, loss, and frustration. The truth is, if you don't learn to control your emotions, they will control your wallet, and that's a fast road to poverty. Mastering your emotions is just as critical to building wealth as mastering the numbers. I remember early on, like many others, I fell victim to impulse spending. A flashy new gadget, a spur-of-the-moment purchase, or a quick indulgence often felt like a reward. But what I didn't realize then was how these small emotional decisions chipped away at my financial foundation. The excitement faded quickly, but the damage lingered. The wealthy understand something crucial. Emotions can cloud judgment and cause you to act against your own best interests. Fear, greed, impatience. These are the enemy of sound money management. Impulse spending comes from instant gratification, wanting the pleasure now without considering tomorrow's consequences. Emotional investing, buying stocks because they're hot, or selling because of fear leads to chasing losses and missing long-term gains. And making decisions in panic or despair often locks you into poor outcomes. The first step in mastering your emotions around money is awareness. Start by recognizing your emotional triggers. Do you spend more when you're stressed or unhappy? Do you feel anxious when markets drop? Awareness allows you to pause and question your impulses instead of reacting. Next, build financial habits that take emotions out of the equation. Automate savings and investments. When money moves automatically from your paycheck to your savings or investment account, you remove the temptation to spend it impulsively. It also builds discipline, which is the backbone of wealth. It's also essential to develop a clear financial plan. When you know your goals and have a roadmap, it becomes easier to stay on course, even when emotions try to pull you off track. Having a plan creates a filter for decisions. Will this choice bring me closer to my goals or distract me? Practicing patience is another powerful tool. Wealth is rarely built overnight. The wealthy think in terms of years and decades, not days or weeks. So when your emotions urge you to act hastily, remind yourself that slow and steady wins the race. Resist the urge to buy impulsively or sell out of fear. Instead, trust the process and let your discipline guide your actions. I learned early that every time I gave in to emotional spending or panic, I lost more than money, I lost confidence. But every time I controlled my reaction, stuck to my plan, and acted with calm and reason, my confidence grew. That confidence became a self-reinforcing cycle, empowering me to make better choices. In the end, your emotions can either be your greatest asset or your biggest liability in building wealth. The choice is yours. When you master your emotions, you don't just protect your money, you grow it. You become the steady captain of your financial ship, steering it through storms rather than being tossed about by waves. So remember this: control your emotions or they will control your wallet. The path to financial freedom runs through emotional mastery. That is the difference between those who struggle and those who thrive. One of the greatest challenges in building and maintaining wealth is learning to separate what you truly need from what you merely want. This distinction is a powerful secret that the wealthy understand deeply, and it's often overlooked by those who struggle financially. The ability to filter your spending through the lens of necessity versus desire is like having a financial compass that keeps you headed in the right direction. I've seen many people fall into the trap of confusing wants for needs. A shiny new car might seem essential when your old one is merely inconvenient. A luxury vacation feels like a reward when you're stressed. A flashy gadget promises happiness, even though it's only a fleeting thrill. But when you buy based on emotional impulses or societal pressure rather than true necessity, your money slips through your fingers. To build wealth, you need a spending filter. A simple question to ask yourself before every purchase: is this essential, productive, or purely emotional? If it's essential food, shelter, clothing, you accept it as a basic cost of living. But even here, the wealthy seek value, not extravagance. They don't buy the most expensive suit. They buy the one that fits and lasts. They don't eat out every night. They invest in health through nutrition and cooking wisely at home. If it's productive, does this purchase help me build my future? Does it enhance my skills, improve my business, or contribute to my financial goals? A course that teaches you a valuable skill or a tool that helps you work more efficiently qualifies as productive spending. These are investments, not expenses, because they return value over time. If it's purely emotionalis, this purchase a reaction to boredom, stress, envy, or instant gratification? If the answer is yes, then it's a want, not a need. The wealthy recognize that indulging wants without discipline slowly drains their resources and distracts them from their goals. Early in my career, I struggled with this. I remember buying things that made me feel good for a moment but did nothing to move me forward. I learned the hard way that satisfaction from impulse spending is fleeting, while satisfaction from financial progress lasts a lifetime. By creating this spending filter, you take control. You transform each dollar into a deliberate decision, a vote for the future you want. Every no to an unnecessary purchase is a yes to your financial freedom. The wealthy don't avoid wants because they are stingy. They avoid them because they are clear about what really matters. They know that wealth is built by priorities, by choosing to allocate money where it counts most. So how do you apply this in daily life? Start by tracking your spending honestly for a month. Write down every purchase and label it as essential, productive, or emotional. You'll likely be surprised at how many emotional purchases sneak in unnoticed. Next, create a rule. Delay any non-essential, non-productive purchase for at least 72 hours. That pause gives your rational mind time to assess whether it's truly worth it or just a passing feeling. Remember, wealth isn't just about how much you make, it's about how wisely you spend. Separating needs from wants protects your resources, sharpens your focus, and accelerates your progress. When you spend with intention, your money serves you, not the other way around. And that, my friends, is how the wealthy think and how you can think rich too. As we come to the close of our time together, I want you to remember this. Wealth is not a matter of chance, but a matter of choice. It's shaped not by luck, but by deliberate decisions made day after day. The difference between where you are and where you want to be lies in the way you think, the habits you build, and the discipline you embrace. You have the power to shape your financial destiny by mastering your mindset and your actions. I challenge you to start today by taking a clear look at how you handle money. Are your spending habits aligned with your long-term goals? Are you building a financial framework that supports growth and security, or are you letting impulse and emotion lead your choices? The secret to lasting wealth is in the small things, those daily decisions where you choose wisely, say no to distractions, and say yes to your future. Begin by applying the principles we've discussed. Cultivate discipline, live below your means, invest consistently, protect your time, and surround yourself with people who lift you higher. Remember that wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. It's built slowly, steadily by those who keep showing up and doing the work even when it feels hard or unseen. Take action now. Write down your financial goals. Review them every morning. Start saving or investing even a small amount. Pause before your next purchase and ask, is this essential, productive, or emotional? Let these questions guide you. Your journey to financial freedom is yours to own. The road won't always be easy, but with clarity, consistency, and courage, you will build the wealth that lasts. So make today the day you decide, I will think rich, act rich, and become rich not someday, but starting now.